here. I'm Krubus136 with the patch review. So, we're about to review this entire patch, which is pretty lengthy. Thankfully, I took some extra time. It actually came out last night, I think near 10 o'clock. So it was yesterday. Didn't get the chance. Someone's already viewed this. My apologies for not being right on it. I had stuff to do. What are you going to do, right? So, let's take a look. I know that some changes were global, some are specific to heroes, all that stuff. So let's get right into it. The area of an effect, an area and effect icon has been added to all tooltip values that are affected by Bloodstone and other AoE increases. And basically, that just shows you that they could be upgraded by those, so there's no question anymore. So it'll help. Helps just let you know. It's just like a nice ease of life. These UI changes in general are things that Dota's been doing for quite a while, and I think that all of them are very nice. Sorry. They're very nice because newer players aren't going to know all of the ins and outs. So reducing the need to have such a large knowledge base is very nice. Now my face is all right because it sneezed. Okay, I'm going to move this mic a little bit too. Just a little bit closer. So you guys can hear me a little bit better. Okay, so maybe I should actually turn my gain up just a tiny bit. Okay, I turned up my gain just a little bit. That'll help a little bit when I'm talking, where it'll put it at a more reasonable volume for you guys, I think. I'm trying my best here, just to make sure it's like at an appropriate volume. I'm seeing myself talking, that if I start talking a little quieter, it's still reaching about 30 to 50% of the bar, which is kind of what I'm going for. So, I'm just going to turn it just a slight bit. Okay, that's probably where I want it. Yeah, okay. The mines map aura. That's around the mines, right? If you go to the mines, that's where where we're talking about. It's in the outside on Dire. It's towards the top. It's near the pool of water. It's to the side. The health regen aura, because there is a health regen aura for being near it, has gone from 7 to 5, making it not quite as valuable to fight in that area for the defending team. Or the offensive team, either team really. It also makes it harder to farm there because you don't get as much health just by walking around. The well, which is also in a similar area, has an aura, Well Wishes, which gave you a mana regen. It went from 1.5 to 1.2. Similarly, it just means that if you farm in the area, you don't get all your mana back or health back, or fighting there gives you less aura. It's just kind of nice, in my opinion, to just kind of reduce those. I don't like that they exist in the first place, so, you know. Alright, I don't remember what Roshan was doing, but it doesn't matter. Starting from his second death, Roshan now always drops Roshan's banner. I think how it was before is that second death was always cheese. And just cheese. So now it always drops Roshan's banner. Third death forward, it'll now drop Refresher Shard and Cheese during the daytime, which is the bottom right, or Aghanim's Blessing by itself. That's the difference. Just Aghanim's Blessing. Sorry. Steam sent me a message. If it's at the top left. This just changes what order you'll get things on. You're going to get Roshan's banner earlier than you normally would, which might help some early push strats by using banner to push into tier 3s. And now it's more reliable. Refresher Shard, Cheese, and it actually, or Aghanim's Blessing. It actually feels valuable to do bottom right now, because before, you know, well, based on where they were, it was only valuable to do one. But getting a Refresher and Cheese versus Aghanim's Blessing, both are great. So either one could be, you know, justifiable. I think this is a good change. It does make it, like, more, you know, universal, and first and second death are set regardless of where they are. I like that, too. Teleport time to Roshan's outpost has been decreased from 6 to 4. Basically, whenever you TP somewhere, if I'm remembering correctly, every single person who TPs is another 2 seconds behind the person from before. I am going to fact check that right now. Because I think this is really important for this particular discussion, right? I believe it's 2 seconds. Okay, let's see. Yep. Okay, yeah, 2 seconds. So it says right here, first channel time for a teleport takes 3 seconds to cast. First channel time to outpost is 4. Second channel time increases by 2. Following channel time increases by 0.5. So with that in mind, that means that the second person is 2 seconds up and then just a little bit above that every time following through. So reducing the base teleport time to 4 here means that the next person will be 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, you know. That's a big difference because before it was 6, 8, 8.5, 9. So the entire team can TP easier to respond to a Roche than they could before. And I think this is a very big change, and it should be. Because it always felt like, oh, we won't get there in time. That's always the case, right? We won't get there in time. Now, it might actually happen. So, the following are considered a teleport. This is a new classification because things are going to interact with them. Or not, as the case may be. This is some of the stuff I did read, some of the starting stuff, by the way. I didn't read every single change, but I generally looked at all this stuff here. I did look at the items. I think I looked at every single item. After that, heroes I only peeked at. So, Town Portal Scroll is, of course, a teleport, as are Boots Travel 1 and 2. They're all teleports. Of course they are. Using the Twin Gate counts as a teleport. Shen calling you in is a teleport. Io teleporting you somewhere is a teleport. Keeper of the Light calling you in is a teleport. Lone Druid calling his bear in is a teleport. Makes sense. Nature's Prophet teleport is a teleport. Templar Assassin Sonic Projection also makes sense to be a teleport. Tinker literally has Keen Conveyance, which is just Boots Travel, but kind of worse. Underlord's Fiend Gate, that makes sense that it's a teleport. And Visage can call his familiars back. That's also a teleport. These all make sense, right? I don't think anybody would have a problem with these being considered teleports. We'll get to why this matters further down, I think. Breakability. The breakability rules of facets, innates, and abilities have been updated. So now, Breakable Yes has been added to all abilities that are partially or fully disabled by break, meaning, I think it says it in the UI, all abilities that are partially disabled by break have an alt tooltip explaining what changed. The following are now fully disabled by break, and not all these were before. Some of them might have been, but they all are now. Grievel's Greed, in all this. So, I very don't believe this is going to affect anything. Oh, he doesn't farm well while he's hit with break. I think he's probably fighting if he's breaking. Who cares? Smoldering Resin. I don't even remember what the fuck that is. It must be a facet. Got the time, right? A debuff. His attack supply debuff that deals extra attack damage. Okay. That is actually a big deal. So, Batrider does a lot less damage if he's broken. So, you can actually reduce his debuff, right? Thirst, which is huge. So, you break Bloodseeker, he slows the fuck down. Bounty Hunter, you know, stealing money and, you know, crits and all that stuff. Nerfed, so he's much weaker, but minor. Chaos Knight, Reigns of Chaos. Oh, you're on 3 streams streaking for very nice. Reigns of Chaos, I believe, is Chaos Knight's ability. His passive? Yeah. The chance to spawn an additional illusion. What's up, Precipitation? Welcome. Welcome, welcome. 60 what? Oh, 60 months. Oh, yeah. Thanks for the sub and Furry. Same guy, by the way. I call him Furry because I know him in real life. Yeah, it's been a while. It's funny. I'm such a small channel, and I admit that I'm a small channel, but I have quite a few people who have Amazon Prime who have been subscribing for 60 months, 65 months straight. So, like, even though the income definitely is... I have to have a full-time job outside of here, but, like, it's definitely appreciated. Definitely appreciated. I think the Chaos Knight losing his ability to get extra illusions is actually really big. This is probably the biggest change in here so far with the breakability change. It means that if you hit him with the Silver Edge before he uses Manta or Ult or Stun, because technically Stun has the ability to have an extra illusion too, if he has Shard, that he will not get as many illusions. You're just flat out saying no extra illusions for you, Chaos Knight. Big change. I don't even know what Clockwork does. What is armor power? Beyond me.
Some assembly required.
Okay, when he has armor, he increases his outgoing damage. So he won't get any damage ant based on his passive. Crystal Maiden, that's the mana increase, I believe. Okay, so these are basically a ton of facets, and I don't even know what they all do. Like, I don't play Darkseer. Does it matter? Maybe? It's a harder battle, right? Moves faster when near other heroes. Okay. So he loses his ability to be fast. Dark Willow, Pixie Dust is... I know it does too, I can't remember.
No one will forget the name Mariska.
HP regen, mana regen. So if you break her and she goes invis, she doesn't get that, which is pretty nice. Death Prophet, Witchcraft makes her go faster, I believe. Yes. Is that passive? Movement speed, yeah, fast. And cooldown reduction. So yeah, a lot of these people are going to slow down, right? Enigma got Gravity Well and Event Horizon, which is really nice because, you know, screw Enigma, am I right? So first off, giving people... That's actually what it does, damage reduction. Alright, so it doesn't give damage reduction to his allies, that would be big. And him slowing units. So yeah, it's a lot of these passives. That's not the right button, sorry. Distortion Field is the slowing down of projectiles. Grimstrunks Ink Trail, I believe, slows. I'll look into it after. Apex Predator for Lycan gives him a buff to his damage. Oh, Lycan's not my thingy. It's over here. Lycan. Extra damage to neutral creeps, which is pretty fair. Magnus's ability to not get moved as much. Mars's Dauntless is the one that gives him, I believe it's when he gets extra health regen. Yep. Yep, Mars and allied heroes get more HP regen. I was right. I took a shot in the dark right there. Naga Siren Eelskin. I don't know what the fuck Eelskin does. What? Evasion. Okay, that's a big one, by the way. You hit Naga once with Break, and she has no evasion anymore if it's from her illusions. That's a huge one. I mean, I don't really want to go through every single one of these. I think they're not super, you know, important. Perhaps I'll go back for them later. But basically, you can just break a ton of shit now. It made Break so much more valuable, but the problem is I don't think they added any ways to get Break. Chaos Knight's Phantasmagoria. The Break disables just the passive damage reduction. They're still strong illusions. Ember Spirit's Immolation. It's not disabled for Fire Remnants when upgraded with Ag Scepter, but it does stop them from normally doing damage in general. Blade Form, which is Jug's ability to get a stack of extra damage ready to go. Break does not disable the passive bonuses. If he already has the stacks, they'll just tick away as they do, but it stops him from getting new ones. Feast doesn't let him deny creeps early. It disables him from getting new stacks, but it does not disable the passive bonuses from existing stacks, which means he... Okay. Interesting. Monkey King's Jingu Mastery. He can't get new stacks, but he still has the old ones. Uproar doesn't get the attack damage or new stacks. Both of those. Storm Spirit. You can't get new stacks for kills. Kraken. No new stacks. Okay, most of these are all stacks. They just can't gain stacks. It's almost all stacks. Lich's Death Charge, which is the ability to send out an ult at death, is no longer affected by Break, which is really nice. Alright, ability blocking. This one's much easier to follow, too. So a bunch of abilities... abilities that are applied with attacks can no longer be blocked or reflected. The following abilities have had their behavior change. Beamasters, Call of the Wild, Hawk, Dive Bomb cannot be blocked or reflected. So like Lincoln's, for example. Doesn't work. Ahmed's Hammer of Purity cannot be blocked anymore. Walrus Punch cannot be blocked. Thank God, by the way. Huge negative to Tusk for the longest time. Fire Blast when applied by attacking with the talent. So like the right-clicked multicast on Fire Blast. Abilities that can be unit or point targeted, but do not track their target when unit targeted can no longer be blocked. So basically, Earth Spike and Burrow Strike can no longer be blocked. That's huge, by the way. Huge buff to both of those heroes. Abilities that track their target when unit targeted can be blocked or reflected. Flying abilities have had their behavior changed. Ion Shell. How would that work? How would you break it? He casts it on allies only. No, he can cast it on enemies. I'm sorry. Okay, I get it. Yeah. So he casts it on enemy, it can be blocked. Never mind. I always think of him casting it on allies, but he can cast it on enemies too. Abilities that can be unit targeted and displace the caster are now blocked on ability cast instead of after displacement. So before, Huskar Life Break would allow him to go at you, and then it would be blocked. Now he will not move. So he'll cast and it'll just break and he'll stop. Marcy Rebound is the same. Meepo fleeing a Meepo at you is the same. Stormhammer with Ags, he won't even go towards you. Tiny won't even toss. Tusk can't snowball. These abilities are really weak for their ability to have to follow a unit and then not get the ability they need on that unit. So now that they block appropriately before moving, it's actually better and worse. It's better because you don't get stuck next to someone who you have not successfully stunned. You know, I'm thinking like, Sven. Or you can't be pulled away only to be blocked and killed instantly like Huskar. Sometimes that could happen if someone got really far moved away from Huskar after he jumped. That can still happen if they don't block it, but at least you hit them with a life break. That's the difference. Abilities that fire a projectile at a primary target and affect an area around them now only trigger spell block and inflection on the primary target. Alchemist's Unstable Concoction cannot be blocked by a secondary person. If it hits the first, it hits everybody. Bristleback's Nasal Goo, when he has the talent. Venomancer Noxious Plague. And if it gets blocked, it doesn't spread, by the way. Okay, cool. Abilities that fire individual tracking projectiles at targets to apply the same effect to all units now trigger spell block and reflection independently. Following abilities have their behavior changed. So, Brain Sap with Ags. So he hits you all. Anybody with damage block can block their hit of Brain Sap. Which is obviously a buff to Bane because he could just pop a lot of Lincolns at the same time. But it's a nerf at the same time because that means that people, before, he would just target a person who wasn't Lincolns, and if someone else has a Lincolns, it would still hit them. So you can protect yourself. Poison Touch, which is a Hex, same thing. Very bad for the fact that he can't Hex by force now. Lion Finger of Death with Ags, again, everybody individually. Mind Flare with a talent, everybody individually. Ancient Seal, so if there's multiple Ancient Seals that proc, because the two, the target, even if they don't have a Lincoln and the secondary one does, they'll block. Soul Assumption, Gleipnir, that's a big one. Unit target abilities that bounce between multiple targets, like Witch Doctor Cask, will only trigger spell block and reflection on the primary target. So these ones... Okay. Shadow Wave will still hit everybody. Hoodwink, Snake, Wrath of Nature, Spirit Lance, Fade Bolt, Laser, Magic Missile, Witch Doctor Cask, Arc Lightning. So basically, no matter what, those ones will bounce. Those are they're just going to go by it. Neutral item active effects can no longer be blocked or reflected. Book of Shadows and Force Boots, basically. If you try to push an enemy with Force Boots or use Book of Shadows on somebody to stop them from attacking, it was just basically that can't be blocked. Good. Makes them more helpful. Okay, that was all the complicated stuff. Everything else is easier, but long. Alright, Rashawn's Banner. The effect radius increased from 600 to 650. That 50 increased range actually is worth it. The reason why is they become damage immune while the banner is up, okay? It lasts 120 seconds. The area of effect... Yeah. It just means that basically the area is larger. So it's easier to have it affect all the creeps and harder to kill a banner because it could be a little further away. So it's a buff to the banner, which I think is needed. Bracer no longer provides any damage. I usually like to keep this at the bottom, but it looked ugly there. So I'm going to keep it at the top. It now provides 1,500 health. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Would that hurt a strength hero? Kind of. A strength hero that's going to lose their damage is sad about that, right? Because, damage is a lot. So you're Sven, you're sad. You're like, I wanted to buy a bracer and do damage, and now I'm losing 3 damage. I'm only getting 50 health, which I don't necessarily need. But most heroes are happy, because Bracer is typically bought to tank up, and it does it better now. And any support now is going to want to buy Bracer. Crystal Maiden, Bracer. Witch Doctor, Bracer. Right? A lot of in supports are going to buy Bracers now because they're so much better at being tanky. That's a huge difference. So I think Bracer is going to really come into its own in the right kind of way. It's made as a tanky item, not necessarily as a damaging item. Bloodstone. Spell lifesteal bonus was decreased by 10 whole fucking percent. That's a huge nerf to its passive ability. The spell lifesteal multiplier was increased by a whopping 1.5 times, though. So, when it was active, it used to do 75%. Now it will do 80, right? Multiplicatively. So when it's active, you'll actually gain 5% spell lifesteal that you didn't have before. But for the other 30 seconds when that's down until it's up again, because 5-second uptime, 35-second cooldown, for the other 30 seconds, you lost 10%. So you lose 10% right off the bat in exchange for getting 5% here. In addition, the duration was decreased by 1 second. I'd say overall this is a nerf. However, it's the right kind of nerf. It's saying, look, universally holding a Bloodstone isn't going to be quite as good just as a passive. The use is way stronger, 5%, but is stronger, which might be the difference between you living and dying, but we're not going to let it last forever either. So I still think it's a nerf overall, but it's a much more niche item, and I could see who might still buy this. You know, Leshrac, for example. Soul Rend bonus damage on silenced targets from non-hero units. That means if a creep hits me while I'm soul rended, was decreased from 50 to 25. Illusions are still counted as heroes, so it doesn't actually affect anybody that would be attacking. But like if a creep comes and hits me, that's what matters. A boar from Beastmaster, a regular, Hellbear Smasher ran out and hit me. Lane creeps won't only do half damage. That's a much bigger deal because obviously not taking as much is going to have a big deal on how much damage this is going to end up doing in context. I don't think it's a big nerf, but obviously I like it. All right, the nerf to many, many, many aura items are coming in. Get ready for it. Crimson Guard, cooldown increased by 5. Also, the Guard bonus block, which was based on the caster's max health, was decreased by 2.5 to 2.2, making how much it blocks less, which is needed. It's too good, which is why I'm shocked nobody buys it more often. So it was nerfed a little bit, which was needed, both on the cooldown as well as the actual active block. Dagon's spell lifesteal now scales up. I'm not sure why, but they want everybody to buy Dagon, and people don't buy Dagon that often. I don't know. Eternal Shroud's magic resistance went down by 0.5% per stack. I'm going to get back to this in a moment. E-Blade's projectile gets faster again. It's been getting faster and faster, so now it's significantly faster. Easier to combo now. Guardian Greaves got a cooldown nerf of 5 seconds to match. Actually, not to match. It's actually still more than Crimson. Heart heals for 0.2% less, which is probably needed. It has too much of a heal to it. Heaven's Halberd did need a buff. Slow resistance went up by 5, and the disarm mana cost went down by 25. Really big buff to Heavens. Cheaper to cast. Better slow resistance. I like this. Lotus's Echo went down by 1 whole second. The reason that matters, it's minor. Rarely do I find, like, oh, a Lotus was cast. Everybody's getting their shit reflected. But for that one ability that you need to not get hit with, like a big ult or something, Bane ult, you can't cast until Lotus is over. So Lotus getting nerfed buffs all those really, really heavy CC abilities. Manta Illusion lasts 2 seconds less. That's probably needed too. It was too easy to push with illusions, and so now that you're nerfing Manta, that's less of a factor. It means that obviously you just can't do that as much or farm as much with them. It's more of a fighting item. Pavis's health bonus for the holder of it increased by 25, and that's really nice, right? Makes it a better item. And Pipe. The barrier duration decreased by 2 seconds, and the magic resistance went down by 2. Let's talk about Pipe versus Eternal Shroud for the umpteenth time. Okay. They are almost the same price, right? 25 more in Pipe, I'll be fair. Let's talk about every stat now, comparing them now. 14 health regen, 20 resistance, just to hold it. 20 resistance, 10 strength, 250 health. Obviously much more effective health, Well, Pipe lets you sustain better across a long period of time. Sure. This one is a passive that gives 8% magic resistance and 2.5 more health regen. This one, its passives are only affecting you. So we'll talk about that in a second. So, the active 450 damage block for 10 seconds. 20% of incoming enemy spell damage gives you mana. That's fine. That doesn't affect your actual survivability, but it's a mana gaining item. And then for every 300 spell damage the equipped hero receives, it gains a stack. For 5 seconds, each charge gives 3.5% magic resistance. Okay? So, people's big argument here is that since the magic resistance is the same on both, they want Eternal Shroud, because Eternal Shroud gives a little bit more health and, strength, which is also health. And it gives you a lot of magic resistance on it. But when you talk about the magic resistance, right, Pipe gives you, an extra 8% on top of the 20. So it's 28% always. This one, to get to that, you would need to have, obviously, 3.5, 7. You would need to have a little bit over 2 stacks, right? Over 2 stacks. You would need a third stack, and then you start having more magic resistance. So the first 2 stacks, you don't. It's actually less efficient. So you need to take over 600 damage. 600 damage itself would mean this is less efficient just on the magic resistance alone, not counting the barrier, okay? Not including the barrier. After that, since the barrier blocks 450, and it takes you 300 additional damage to get the third stack, that means that you would need to take substantially more than that. So you need to take 600 first, then the 450, which is 1,050, and then technically to get the other stack, you need to take 1,300. If you're going to take 1,300 magic damage, and that's not counting the additional 8%, but probably about 1,300 plus magic damage in the amount of time the stacks last, which is 5 seconds, but then if you got hit again, I believe they refresh the stacks, I think. I believe. You need to take about 1,300 magic damage in a short amount of time. We'll say 10 seconds. 10-ish seconds, right? So the stacks can keep refreshing. In order for Eternal Shroud to be better at resisting magical damage. Not counting the fact that you get health, of course. There is the effect of having 470 more health. I'm not going to disagree on that, obviously. That would be ridiculous for me to not say it doesn't matter, right? So, if you're going to receive a mixing of magical and physical, you're like, oh, I get strength from Eternal. Okay, I get that, right? But Pipe, for most magic damage you're going to receive, just for you, not counting the fact that Pipe gives an aura to anybody else, even just for you, if you're receiving less than 1,300 damage, soft math, then Pipe is better. Now, of course, again, ignoring the health part, because the health part could counterbalance having an extra amount of health. Let's do fair subtraction. 1,300 minus 470. It obviously puts us, we were doing soft math, it's under 1,000. So even if we include that health as being a factor in that, saying, well, taking that much damage, we'd have to say, you'd have more health to take it anyway. Sure, whatever, let's just subtract it straight, which isn't fair, because the health would not necessarily stretch as far depending on how the damage is happening, but sure. You want to argue that? Fair. So somewhere around 1,000 damage you'd have to take until Eternal Shroud is better for you. 1,000 magic damage. Ish. Close to that. Maybe a little less. Then, you have to consider the fact that Pipe affects the whole team. Both the magic resistance of 8% as well as the magic barrier for them too. They also get stuff for them, which means it affects everybody. So I think that most of the time, when you look at the math, depending on who you're against, Pipe is better. Now, if you were against a Zeus, which is something Furry brought up, okay, I can see how you might take enough damage quickly, where Eternal Shroud actually would counterbalance. And it would. I'm not going to disagree, right? Zeus going to be nuking the fuck out of you? Yeah, alright. I get it. I just think that people overbuy Eternal Shroud when they should just be buying Pipe, right? Pipe does a lot more for your team. If you're a 3, you should buy a Pipe by default. I don't care who you are. Pipe by default if you're going to buy either of them. And people just don't do it. It shocks me every time. Because the 2% nerf on both of them affects Eternal... Sorry, the 2% and the 0.5% affects Eternal more. So Infuri pointed out that the 0.5%, you would need to have 4 stacks in order for them to balance out. The problem is that Pipe's main component is the active barrier. The 2% doesn't matter that much. Pipe never needed that 2% as much as Eternal Shroud did. Because Pipe already has, with it now being nerfed, it's still 38. And Eternal Shroud is 20 until you get enough stacks. The Mana Restore is something that obviously has to have its own value. It depends on who you are. I don't buy either on Lesh. I don't think either of them is necessary in most cases. I could see a niche case against the Zeus where, okay, alright. But I wouldn't buy them on Lesh usually, only because he doesn't need them. He heals so much that it doesn't matter what type of damage you're taking. The point is to take the damage fully and then just heal back. Like Bloodstone, you know what I mean? But the Mana Restore itself can be nice, obviously. The problem with Mana Restore is that it has marginal value that actually decreases the higher level you are. Because your stats should go up, and your mana pool and Mana Restore should also go up. But I do agree in an early to mid-game sense, it has more marginal value than it would otherwise. Like I said, very few heroes should buy Eternal. This is the way I want it to be. However, I think I'm going to still see it on all my 3s, and I'm going to get mad about it every time. Solar Crest. Recipe cost went down by 100. I think that was needed. Solar Crest is good, but I'm not seeing it bought nearly as much as I think it should be. I think this is what it needs to get back into the meta. Shadow Amulet got changed entirely. The Fade no longer requires the target to remain still. I can cast Shadow Amulet on an ally who's moving. Fade no longer refreshes its cooldown if it's cast on self. That's to stop you from shading yourself. It now slows the target by 35% while invisible, meaning that if I cast it on an ally, they are now, or me, we're slow while we're moving, which prevents you from, running away as much. It can be dispelled by, any dispel. The cooldown increased by 11 to stop people from just sitting around invis. And the duration decreased from 15 to 3.5. So, what this looks like is a really, really bad Glimmer, and that's what it should be, because it builds into Glimmer as one of its items. Now, granted, it builds into Shadow Blade too, but Glimmer does not give you a slow. So, this is like a poor man's Glimmer. It's bad based on duration. It's only 3.5 seconds instead of Glimmer, which I believe is 5. So it's a second and a half less time in it. The cooldown is shit compared. I believe that Glimmer is much shorter than that. I already lost Glimmer, there it is. 14 versus 18. So 4 less second cooldown, 1.5 second more uptime. I do not believe can be dispelled. Doesn't slow the person. Big deal, right? So, but Shadow Amulet does more now. It just seems like a better item rather than I'm going to stand here invisible all game item. Spirit Vessel recipe changed. Now it needs a Vitality booster and a recipe, but the total cost is the same. No longer gives 6 to all attributes, it just gives health. The reason why this is really important is that Spirit Vessel is almost always on supports. Once in a while it's on a 3. So if you like Spirit Breaker, you might not appreciate this, because you're like, oh, I wanted the attributes. I want the attack speed from the agility. Too bad. Made as a support item anyway. So the point is, you can be tanky and hold your Spirit Vessel and do your job, but it's not as good on any kind of core, person. I think that's a good change. Soul Release cooldown increased by 3 seconds, so you can't cast it as often. Soul Release damage per second was decreased by 10. I think it's for the mana, but it depends on what you build. So if there's no mana regain item that you can get in a reasonable amount of time, I understand why. It's solely for that reason, I believe. It's for mana burst. The problem is, often if someone ignores you and doesn't cast spells on you on purpose, you will still run out of mana, and it won't help you at all because of the fact that then they're all there and it doesn't matter how much mana you have because they'll kill you. I'm not saying that people won't buy it across many levels, but I can see why it's not as helpful as it might appear. Granted, it has value. I think also because people are playing Leshrac in certain contexts, they might purposely play Leshrac as an answer to Magic Nuke, knowing that they can't out-damage his regen, and then Lesh buys a Eternal because it's against Magic Nuke like a Zeus. People might be picking Lesh as a response to a Zeus pick, and then buying an Eternal because it's Zeus, And then now Zeus is countered entirely because he can't kill Lesh ever. He'll regen too much health. He'll have too much magic resistance. He gets all his mana back. And then Zeus literally can't play the game. And in that context, that might be true. I just don't think it's so essential on him. But it could be fine depending on the context. Soul release health gain reduction increased from 45 to 50. So basically this is the debuff, right? It prevents someone from gaining health when it's active. That's what that means. So basically the change here. Same price, better stats for supports. Oh, sorry, I think I skipped this one. I thought it was a cooldown change. Oh, it is a cooldown change. Soul release cooldown. Yeah. So it looks like it's a nerf across the board almost entirely, which is very unfortunate. I like the health change for supports, but cooldown is very sad. Damage per second is very sad. I do like that it stops regen a little bit more because this is actually a nerf to Leshrac when he has Bloodstone. It's a nerf to Necro. It's a nerf to Huskar. I think this is the point. It's supposed to be a bigger counter to the heroes it counters, but not necessarily universally the same. Similar change, Urn has the same cooldown change, and instead of attributes, it gives health as well. I like that. These are good changes in general. I think almost all these items were a positive, right? I like Bracer change. I like Bloodstone's change, even though it's a nerf. I like nerfing, Crimson, Eternal, Guardians, and Pipe. I think those are all needed. I'm glad to see Halberd get a buff. I'm glad to see Solar Crest get a buff. I'm glad to see Spirit Vessel get changed to be more like a support item. Alright, neutral items. I hate all these changes, by the way. Almost every single one. I like Shovel, though. I did read these. Dig cooldown no longer ticks down if the shovel's in your neutral, is not in your neutral slot. So guess what, everybody? If you want to hold a shovel because you just want to keep digging shit up all the time, no. And I'm glad. What an annoying micro to do. Let me take out my shovel. Let me dig in the ground. Let me put away my shovel. Let me redo the process every fucking minute. Good. Fuck that. On the flip side, it always digs up a water rune when it's used in the river. I think that's really cool. I was looking, sorry. Doesn't say it in the tooltip yet. I think that's cool. Fairy Trinket has been cycled out. Good. Fairy Trinket was too good for a tier 1 item. It just is. All the time, for most heroes, it was just the best item you could get for a while. To replace it, Ironwood Tree is back. Woo! $5 attributes, and you can plant a tree. That's it. The reason you plant a tree, by the way, guys, is if you get this and you use Tango, you get the double healing from that tree. That's the goal. It's kind of a goodish item. I would take this over some other items depending on the hero I am. If I was like Sniper or something, $5 attributes is actually really good. It's really strong for tier 1, actually. $5 attributes. Pigpole. All attributes bonus was decreased from 5 to 4. Exactly the point, because Pigpole had $5 attributes. So it would make Ironwood Tree kind of shit. But the bonus movement speed was increased by 5%, which is really nice. That makes this a much better item for escape. Iron Talon, returning as a tier 2. 20 attack speed, 4 armor. It can chop trees or an enemy unit to remove 80% of its health. The jungle's coming back, and I don't like it. Philosopher's Stone now has 750 charges. That is the most charges that anything in Dota has ever had. It depletes a charge every time it grants gold to the owner, which I believe is at the same rate that it used to grant gold, every second or whatever. When all charges are depleted, the item is destroyed and the owner receives an additional 375 gold. So basically, if you pick up Philosopher's Stone, right, it still gives you mana. It still reduces attack damage, right? It gives you 75 GPM, which means that it's going to last 10 minutes, right? Is that correct? Good math? Yes. 10 minutes, you'll get the value that you already were going to get, right? At that point, it blows up and you get a bonus 375, which means that obviously it sucks if you wanted to keep it in your inventory, but that also stops that, meta from like, let's put it in my inventory before I die so I can get, money while I'm dead or whatever. I like the change. I think it's interesting. Pupil's Gift got buffed. The attribute bonus for Universal Heroes increased from 7 to 8, which just means that they get the extra $1 stats as well as some damage from that. I think that's needed. Vambrace, I love this. It was moved to tier 3, which means it's better because they buffed it to be tier 3. Main attribute bonus increased by 2. Other attributes increased by 2. The strength being its prime. If you choose strength, 2% more magic resistance. Choose agility, 5 more attack speed, int, 2 more spell amp. I think this is a very good item for tier 3 too. Like, I like this in tier 3. It's very nice. Ogre Seal Totem is now 4. Strength bonus increased by 2. The cooldown decreased by 5. The damage on flop increased by 70, which is a dramatic difference. And now I can kind of change directions with reduced turn rate, which means you can kind of, like, you know, hop a little diagonal. Mara's Plate was removed. It probably needed to. It was too tanky. I like Shovel Change. I like Fairy Trinket Change. I like Philosopher's Stone Change. Pupils, Vambrace, Ogre Seal. Those are all good. Neutral creeps. Harpy Stormcrafter no longer always cast Chain Lightning if attacked by lane creeps when pulled. It was too good for pulling because it made it too easy to kill your creeps. Giant Wolf, the Intimidate ability, total attack damage reduction was increased from 50 to 60. So Giant Wolves have I believe it's a aura. So that's really nice to see it increase because if someone takes it, they can use it. Hellbear Smasher's Death Throw. Base attack damage bonus was increased from 50 to 60. I believe Death Throw is when it dies, other enemies around get the bonus. And if the Hellbear regular dies, the attack speed went up by 20. So it just makes these the Death Throws a little bit better in general. Ancient Granite Golem, which is the big one, I believe. Bonus HP percentage was increased by 1% early, but it still scales up to what it used to be. Wait, it used to be 15, 16, 17, 19. It just jumps 2 for no reason. They just kicked it up so it actually makes sense now. Minor, but it's nice. The Weakening Aura around the Ancient Rock Golem, which is an armor reduction, went up by 1 at all levels. Also nice. It also makes stacking harder because obviously these creeps are stronger now. Okay, we're getting to hero changes. Most of the changes are to facets and innates, just so you know. So, Font of Avernus was removed. In exchange, a new passive. Damaging enemies applies the Withering Mist debuff for 5 seconds. Affected enemies have their HP regeneration, healing, lifesteal, and spell lifesteal reduced by 35% if they are below 40%. That means it only affects them as they're getting weak. The debuff will still be there to wait if they get weak, but if they do get to that threshold, they suddenly get a huge nerf to all this healing nonsense. I don't know how good it is compared to Font of Avernus, but I think it's interesting. Borrowed Time got a 10-second cooldown nerf at all levels. Needed. Don't care about the talent. Alright, Anti-Mage got a lot of changes, and I actually like a lot of them. Base health regen increased by 0.25. Let's go. Regenning in lane will be easier than before. New innate. So instead of Mana Break being innate, Persecutor. Scales with Mana Void, by the way. Attack slow enemies based on how much mana they are missing. So this is the minimum slow, meaning that at all levels you'll slow for this amount. Always. At 50% mana. Yeah, this is min slow at 50% mana. I'm pretty sure it'll slow you always. Up to a much higher slow of 25, which is double it, basically double the slow, at 0% mana. Slow duration is 0.75 seconds. So the difference here is that before it was built into Mana Break that slowed, right? You're out of mana, you're slowed, but only if you're out of mana. Now, you can be slowed all the time, just by being hit. If you're lower on mana, you're just slowed more. I love that change. Really strong for Anti-Mage. Mana Break, because it's no longer innate, they had to kick up the abilities in general. For the most part, like for the percentage, it has not changed at all. It just got rid of the lowest level and just continued. So that hasn't changed at all. What did change is this one. Mana Burn, the raw number, has changed. For good and for bad. It went up. So it used to be 16 at like 0 and then 23. Now instead of 23, it's 25. So it actually went up by 2. So level 1 Mana Break actually burns more mana than it did before. However, it's the same at level 2, and it actually got a 2 mana nerf at 3, and then a 4 mana nerf at 4. Now, the numbers make more sense, I'm not going to lie to you. 25, 30, 35, 40 makes more sense than 16, 23, 30, 37. So I'm not going to disagree that it makes sense. And it's a nice early game buff. However, it is technically a nerf, but we'll get there. Blink now has an Aghanim Scepter, instead of the old Aghanim Scepter of creating the up to 3 illusions that teleport in, to blink in, which was the problem. Now instead, it reduces the cooldown by 1, which used to be a talent, so they took that away naturally. So now you get that from getting Aghanim Scepter. After casting Blink yourself, right? You blink it anywhere. Your next mana break, which is you hitting someone, within 5 seconds, it's a buff you gain, a 5-second buff ready to hit. Burns an additional 20% max mana. I want to be crystal clear. Do you know how much mana it would have to be raw to equal this number? If you had 500 mana, which is not a lot, it's a decent amount, 500 mana, 10% would be 50, 20% would be 100. If you compare with this as an item in your builds, you will burn so much more mana. And then let's look at the big thing. This is Infuri's most frustrating part here. Prevents the target from regenerating or gaining mana for 6 seconds undispellable. So literally, like, okay. I'm going to test it. Here we go.
There's no magi that I can't track.
First, we're going to test the slow, by the way. I'm going to try not to test too much because I have about an hour until I was intending to play Dota anyway. But, you know, I'll give it a little shot.
Mage is not a name. It is a title.
Gyrocopter starts with 327 mana, just so we're clear. So 500 is not a lot. So, first off, I want to see the slow. Gyro's moving at 320 movement speed.
I'm ready.
Okay, he does not slow until half mana is what they said, right? Alright, there we go. I'm out now running away. Okay, you can still get away because I'm 10 faster than anti-mage by base. But eventually I won't be able to escape anymore. I just want to be clear about that. Now, the slow isn't crazy at earlier levels. Obviously, being a 12.5%, well, a 25% slow isn't quite as strong as, you know, you would hope if you're not faster. If you're a little faster, though, at the same speed, that'll be tremendous. So, we want to see Axe.
Trust me, you're gonna want to lay off the magic for a while.
I want to, I'll see another gyro, I don't care. Alright, so,
If I ever
I do need to get
drop a
Blink,
lie,
otherwise this
just end me right there.
can't blink otherwise. Yep, that was a big hit. He lost 100 mana.
Back to basics.
100 mana from a level 1 mana break and that. So you have to imagine that if I level up...
Let's keep moving.
I level him up.
Yes.
The difference is going to be dramatic. Yep, that was huge. That was gigantic. Right?
I've got this.
And if I level up to max just so I have the extra slow and mana burn and all that stuff, and I'm going to level him up to max. I'll give him a heart too, just so he doesn't die so easy.
I'm ready.
Now if I hit him, he'll never get away. Oh, he still will. So the slow is only 0.75 seconds, so it's only going to help a little bit to get an extra hit or two, unless you have a bash or something on anti-mage.
You don't have time to waste.
But now, I think I hit him once and he'll lose all his mana. Basically.
On it.
Can I refresh?
This is the moment I've been waiting for.
I don't want to refresh me. Jeez. So Gyro has 1,300 mana. I want to see how much I do. He went down to just over 900, 953. Yeah. Of course.
If I ever
Well, it's more about the move speed. For hitting him over and over again doesn't help if once he moves at that slow speed, if I don't move quick too. Because what'll happen is that when someone moves in general, if they're still within your attack range, you will not move. So eventually they will reach a situation where they are too far away.
I go where I'm
That's what's going to happen more accurately if you're slower. So you're going to need either a bash, a slowing item, or fast enough movement speed. Now, if I have, or blinking, obviously. Because, let's be clear, if I'm chasing him and I'm failing to reach him, right, I'm just going to blink again and do it again. I think at 0, it's nope, see, even at 0, it's not going to matter, because obviously eventually he'll sneak out. Now, most people die before that point, but... So it does seem pretty egregious to just take all that mana away. So now with the Ags, I think it's like core, because you just take so much mana. And since Anti-Mage does 50% of the mana burned, doing a big hit that does 25% max mana burned, if you're against somebody who has, you know, trying to great ways to get mana. If I hit you once, I stole it all. He didn't have any mana left. Yes. It'll be too much. I can do a huge hit that does a bunch of damage, because obviously of all that 25%, if you have 2 grand mana, right? If you have 2,000 mana, 10% is 200. So obviously that's 200, right? Wait, sorry, 200 is what I just said. Sorry, 2,000 mana. 200 is 10%. 400, 500 magic will be taken off of you. Actually, it's 550. What's the max of Anti-Mage? 540. 540 mana will be stripped from you instantly. One hit. 540 mana. Then, on top of that, you take half of that as damage. So you'll take 270? 270 damage instantly. Right? This is one hit. Just blink. That is a tremendous amount of, like, jumping ability. Now, in exchange, he lost his Aghanims, which I think is an overall nerf. Because he could use it to confuse fights and throw in people and kill supports. So overall, I'm not saying it's a buff, but it's very interesting. Arc Warden. One of him, the movement slow, increased on Flux by a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a lot. The Spark Wraith slow duration increased as well, making him more about the CC. It went up by 0.2, 3, 4, or 5. Yep. Disorder, the movement slow went down by 1, 2, 3, 4. And Spark Wraith slow, I assume, went down to what the other one was. Yes. So they switched, basically. They wanted to switch over the Flux and Spark Wraith ones with each other. That's actually what happened. They just switched. They kept Order and Disorder in the same place for anything else that's in them, but they wanted to switch them over. That's all that happened. Ooh, Arc Warden. Magnetic field affects creeps in buildings. Replaced with Flux silences when target is alone. The silence might be stronger, but not being able to take you know, magnetic field affecting creeps in buildings, that might be a nerf. We'll see. I don't know him well enough. Beastmaster's Wild Hunt, which gives attack bonus attack speed, went up by 1 second at all levels. Inner Beast on Beast mode, active bonus attack speed was rescaled to be better early, same late. A new innate, which Inner Beast is no longer. Beastmaster's melee hero damage block chance is increased from 50 to 100% versus non-hero units. Not even, okay. That sounds good. Killing creeps. Wild Axes cost more now, thank God. Bonus attack speed on Inner Beast in general was rescaled because it lost its first level, but they also buffed it in general. Drums of Slom. Shortest drum interval increased from 0.4 to 0.5, meaning it actually procs less often. Damage per strike decreased by 5. No longer increases stacks when attacking buildings. So they really hit the drums hard. Overall, Beastmaster, I think these are nerfs. Some small buffs in there. Bloodseeker now provides full health values when denying heroes. Whatever. Just some buffs to his talents. Bounty Hunter lost 2 base int, making it harder for him to spam spells and magic resistance. Big Game Hunter. When you kill a killing streak, you get extra gold. He now gains more extra gold. The Aghanim Scepter makes the Shuriken Toss's cast range not quite as high. So good. So nerfs overall, except the Big Game Hunter, which is like whatever. Alright, Brewmaster. I don't know a lot about Brewmaster, but here we go. New innate. Whenever Brewmaster responds or comes out of Primal Split, he gains 20% attack damage bonus. When he responds, it's 30 seconds. After coming from Primal Split, it's 15. It means that if he TPs back into a fight or lane or whatever from dying, he's kind of strong or can farm better. After coming out of Primal, he at least has some ability to fight by himself. They nerfed the cooldown of Early Thunderclap and the damage of Early Thunderclap. Drunken Baller is no longer innate. They had to change it to fit. But in exchange, they nerfed the fuck out of Earth Armor. They buffed early game Earth Magic. Storm, early game buff on evasion. Early game buff, late game nerf, slightly on movement speed. Fire Brawler's crit. They had an early game nerf, but it ends up being similar. Attack range, early game nerf. Void stats resistance now stacks. And they buffed it early. And slow on attack scale. Slow on attack rescaled to be the same. So not huge changes, a couple nerfs though here and there. All these. I think even with Belligerent, I think he still got nerfed overall. But not so desperately that it'll change the way the hero plays. Bristleback, huge change. Base damage increased by 6. Now I will grant, he used to have Warpath as an innate, right, which was giving him something. Whenever he cast, he was getting more damage. So he would, cast Quills and he would have more damage. He doesn't have that anymore. So granted, overall a nerf. They're just trying to make up for the fact that it's no longer going to be his innate, right? Prickly. Hero has a 10% damage and debuff duration amp against enemy heroes that are behind him. So if you're behind him, you take more damage, and the debuff duration lasts longer, like Viscous. I mean, that's really nice. It means that when he's using his Axe, for example, it does more damage and everything else. Cool. New facet that he didn't have before. They did not change any old facet, they just added this. It can be activated. Warpath can be activated to grant Bristleback 50% bonus attack damage and 50% bonus movement speed per stack that he has. I don't know if it's 50% bonus attack damage and 50% bonus movement speed per stack. I don't know if this is based on stack. I don't think so. But limits his vision to a 90-degree cone in front of him. Duration 4, 5, 6. I'll get back to that. Aghanim Scepter quill spray count was decreased 6 to 5, so it does less quills. Damage per stack, same. Okay, they just made it so there wasn't a first level. I have to see this. I think that's the best way to look at how it changed. I'm specifically referring to his facet seeing red. I don't know what facet I took. Do I have a facet? No.
Prepare yourselves. We're nearly ready.
I have to exit and go back in with seeing red. Okay, so now I got seeing red. So Warpath can be activated once I have it.
The stage is set. Everyone prepared?
I'll sort this out.
Yeah, okay. So the movement speed is only per stack.
That way. Here's some do for ya. Bit of work to do.
That's a lot of damage.
The killing begins.
A little blood.
Yeah, my movement speed goes from 324 to 348.
Yes.
And that's scaling down, it looks like. Because I don't have as many stacks on me.
A vicious double slaying.
In the line of duty.
Yeah, I mean, it makes him really fast if he has a lot of stacks.
Step at a time. Where are my manners?
That's very interesting.
I'll concave your head.
Interesting. It definitely seems interesting for sure. Nothing crazy. The cone of vision is very small. I think seeing red might be the new build. Honestly. Okay, interesting. I like the changes. These are good changes. Having another facet is huge. Broodmother, Necrotic Web nerf. The debuff now only applies which reduces health regen of enemies on webs that are in the same network as Brood. Now she has to be in the same network of webs. So she didn't used to. It would just reduce health regeneration if you were even close to it. Now she has to be there. Which is a nerf. And all of her talents look like they got nerfed. Except this one. Cast Knight. And Furry was talking about this because he is afraid. Reality Rift, which used to have a 33% chance of doing nothing, now can silence. So basically it has a chance to disarm, silence, or break. I think that that's better. The talent might be tempting now. The only reason I say that is because Phantasmagoria is probably always the facet you're going to take because you need your illusions to be strong illusions. But it's more tempting to take this now for sure. You know, silence is really nice. I don't think it'll make him play it substantially more or change his win rate, but it's interesting. Expanded Armature, which is when there's big cogs. The push duration was decreased from 0.8 to 0.6, which means that you're not pushed as far. Or at least you're pushed far faster. So he can't keep you CC'd as long, which is really nice. They also nerfed the damage he gets per armor from 0.3 to 0.25, which means he'll just do less damage as well. And that's probably needed, because Clockwork is more of a support anyway. Crystal Maiden's facet that gives extra mana regen amp was increased from 50 to 75, so she gets more. That's fine. I don't think it's a big deal. Darkseer lost 2 strength, making him squishy. Mental Fortitude, Intelligence, now cannot be lower than the average of strength and agility. What was it before? I don't remember what it used to do. Yeah, whatever. They also nerfed the vacuum talent. Good. Alright, Dazzle. The barrier duration increased from 10 to 12 on this. I'm getting a phone call. Sorry, guys. Hello. Yes.
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for asking. Glad to hear you are too. I'll be quick in case you're busy. We were just calling for your business today. First, we'd like to thank you for investing in Children of Trinity. Play an important part in the success of the company, so I'd like to make sure that you know we say thank you. And we also want to make sure that you know Carl later on.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there. What about Carl? Yes. Yes, I am familiar. Okay. Not today. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Bye. Okay. Sorry, everybody. I'm not gonna tell you what that phone call was. I wasn't sure how important it was gonna be, so I'll just tell you. I have solar. I don't talk about it a lot because I'm not trying to convince people to go solar. Had it for a while, not terribly long, but a while. And that phone call was somebody from the company who wanted to tell me two things. A, they wanted to thank me for going solar like a while ago. It's not that recent, so it's like, okay, whatever, right? Nice person, just so we're clear. I'm not really not knocking the person. They're doing their job. It is not the person who called me. It is a company thing, right? It's like, okay, whatever. Get to the point, right? Want to tell me about the referral program? I know there's a referral program. If I refer somebody to my solar company, I can get money, right? But, you know, that's how they make their business. They need people to go solar. That's the point, right? So, I have to go dazzle, by the way.
I that
They,
to my old tricks again.
okay. Got what I needed.
Oh, you want some of this?
They told me about it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I was like, oh, like they wanted me to give them a referral immediately, meaning they just wanted to know, like, oh, do you have anybody in mind? It's like, nope. Hoping to make this phone call short. It wasn't that long, mind you. It's minute and a half or whatever, but it's like, okay, you called me for nothing, right? Like, you can send me an email about the referral program, which they do, and you can thank me via an email. You don't need to call me for that. And I picked up just because it's my solar company, and I do technically go through them to get my electricity and all that stuff. So, like, I do need them. So I wasn't sure what we were talking about there, but it was basically nothing. Again, nice person on the phone. I'm not begrudging the person on the phone. Super good, explaining and all that stuff. It also took longer because for like 15 seconds or so, or 10 seconds, it all turned like almost robotic. I couldn't hear very well. It was obviously interference based on where I am and this person was. So then they repeated themselves and I heard them clear as day. But like, I wasted about 10 seconds of the phone call, so it could have been shorter, but whatever. All right, only got 45 minutes. I'm going to rush here. All right, Dazzle. This is when if he heals, you get an overheal. It now lasts longer. Really big buff to this. In his other facet, the split damage of Poison Touch when it hits everybody and splits along them when he right-clicks you, it increased by 5, 10, 15, 20 damage. So in general, both facets are better now, and I think that's cool. Dazzle, he's fine. I haven't seen him played a whole lot, or at least not successfully, so that's cool. Spirit Collector now also gains spirits from Death Prophet's own death and while she is dead. Cool. Makes it just a better thing. New facet. Now add one. Morning Ritual. Death Prophet delays a percentage of incoming damage, taking the damage in 1 second intervals over 5 seconds. Scales with Exorcism. So it just makes it take longer for its killer, like Kunkka buff, for example. Boat buff. Okay. Range increased on Crypt Swarm by 90. That's really fucking annoying. Spirit Siphon can now target Roshan and Tormentors. That's really good, actually. Instead of having health, it got kicked back later to be bigger health, and the Crypt Swarm damage was changed and kicked forward to be a silence AoE. That's probably better anyway. So I don't think these are bad changes. I think overall these are buffs to Death Prophet. Good for you. Disruptor. The Connect Fence cast range was increased by 150, making it easier to cast the fences in the way that you want to. Glimpse now deals a percentage of the distance traveled as damage. Max damage remains the same though. It just changed how it calculates. Glimpse max damage was replaced with a percentage of distance traveled damage and extra max damage. So basically, it's going to end up still increasing the damage by this amount as long as they went far enough. It just changes how it's calculated. I don't know how much that matters. New facet, Impending Doom. Every 6.66 minutes, duration is increased by 0.66 seconds. Doubled in turbo. Damage per second is decreased by just the later numbers. It's still 30, but then it's 50. It goes down 5 and goes down 10. 0, 5, 10. So Doom is weaker, but it lasts longer. Doom already lasts up to 16 seconds anyway. So increasing it so that like mid-game, we're talking how many minutes would mid-game be? 30? So you get almost 5 of these. Let's say just after 30. You get 5 of these increases. That means you get an extra 3 seconds on Doom. That's huge. This is actually really tempting facet, I'll tell you that. Really long Doom. I'm not even sure what his other facets are.
Bristleback!
Like, what does Doom even do nowadays? Doom. He has Devour has 2 charges, and Stolen Group abilities are leveled up. Doom can now sell items for 9% of their value, but their buyback costs are increased. His buyback costs are increased by 15%. Yeah, I think I would actually just take Impending Doom. I know why you might take Gluttony, because you can kill creeps faster and farm a little bit better, but I think Impending Doom is just better. Personal opinion.
I'm a right proper basher.
Dragonite. Corrosive Dragon nerfed again. 1 armor at all levels. Good. And because when he uses ult, it's multiplicative on this, it actually matters a lot more too. Draw Ranger. When she uses Sidestep, the movement speed penalty was decreased from 40 to 25 on multi-shot. So she can move slowly and use items while casting multi-shot, and she does so faster. Bonus damage on Frost Arrows went up by 4, 3, 2, 1. That's nice too. And instead of lifesteal, which was nice, she gets attack range, which is probably better. Yeah. Nice buffs for Draw Ranger. Earth Spirit. New facet. Rolling over an allied hero grants the allied hero bonus movement speed for 4 seconds. Earth Spirit travels further and faster and stuns enemies for longer. Distance multiplier 2.5. Bonus stun duration. So basically, he can now, roll through friends, right? It's really cool. Rolling Boulder now scales up in damage. Magnetized damage per second was increased by 5 at all levels. Alright, cool. This is a good buff to Earth Spirit. No one plays him anyway. Not at my level. Earthshaker. Slugger. Knockback effect is now applied on any kill made by an Earthshaker's ability, not just Enchant Totem. That's a huge buff. Spirit Cairn. It's his new innate ability instead of Aftershock. When Earthshaker dies, a 75 radius fissure is created where he died. This fissure blocks movement, provides vision, and allows Earthshaker to gain experience around it. Weird. Aftershock, the damage was rescaled to be the same it was. Stun was scaled to be the same it was. Okay. So basically, now Spirit Cairn is a thing, which I don't know how I feel about that, and a small buff to Slugger. Elder Titan. Movement speed, his attack speed was decreased by 5%, so they nerfed Momentum, the facet. New innate ability instead of Astral. Allied creeps and buildings affected by Glyph of Fortification or Rashawn's Banner deal 100% bonus damage. Okay, just a passive that helps when we fort or have banner. Bonus speed per hero is rescaled the same. Gotta know, right? The same. Okay, nothing changed. So overall, nerf to momentum and a really weird passive. Ember. Double impact. Second attack damage penalty was increased from 40 to 50. That means that the second slight does less damage by 10%, which is a nerf to this. Immolation. It's a new innate ability. So instead of Flame Guard, Ember Spirit deals damage per second in an AoE around him at all times, which is already what he did. It's actually similar to Flame Guard, but not quite as much. Can be upgraded with Aghanim's Shard. Increases damage by 10, radius by 175, and grants fire remnants the current level. Okay. So basically, he already does damage like he did having Flame Guard, except it would stack with Flame Guard. Don't care about that. Same. Oop, wait. They nerfed damage per second on Flame Guard by 5 at all levels to probably balance out. And same. So I think it's a buff overall for the rest of this, but it's a nerf for the facet. I am not going fast enough. Enchantress. Forest freebie was removed. New innate ability. All neutral camps deal more damage to enemy heroes. Damage increase is 10% plus 3% per Enchantress's hero level. That's a lot. Enchant no longer grants a guaranteed neutral token drop. So, I don't know how I feel about Rabble Rouser. That feels like that they'd be too strong, right? So if she was like level 10, they'd have 40% increased damage, making it harder to farm neutrals. Only on the enemies, though. That's really weird. At least it's not converted neutrals, Tormentor, or Roshan, so that's cool. Okay, Event Horizon, Enigma. The movement slow being near him was scaled, so it has to scale up to it. And it scales with Black Hole, which is really nice. The damage reduction from Gravity Well now has to scale as well. Also scales with Black Hole. So nerfs to these in general. Faceless Void, Chronosphere. Renamed from Temporal Impunity to Chronosphere. Time Walk no longer prevents damage for a short duration after Time Walking. So basically, if you take the Facet, you don't get to have Time Walk's best ability. That's really fucking painful. Grimstroke. His fine art thing. Bonus damage per target was increased by 0, 5, 10, 15. That's fine. Not a big deal. Ooh, Call Down's missiles got buffed. 0, 25, 50. That's really nice, actually. Probably needed to. It doesn't feel very good. Go Nuts Facet. Bonus cast range was increased by 50 at all levels. Bonus attack range increased by 50 at all levels. Acorn Shot costs more. Bonus damage was decreased dramatically. 15, 10, 5, 0. So early game. Armor Corruption Talent decreased. Bounces decreased. So although the Go Nuts Facet got buffed, everything else got nerfed. Nice. New Facet. Burning Spear. Spears also burn enemies for 1% of their max health each second. Costs 4% of max health instead of 4% of current health. Duration decreased 9 to 6. So basically you could have more spears that burn a lot stronger on them and you. Which is actually really nice. Don't care. A lot of changes. Healing Ward, Radius. Removed. A lot of changes. Instead, you have 4% duelist damage, which is the damage when you don't get hit. Or whatever it is. I don't remember what it does anymore. I should probably check that before I say that. Duelist is something.
Each blow sharpens my blade.
Oh, targets that are facing him. I'm sorry. One of his facets is the one that does that. So he can get just 4% more damage when targets are facing him altogether. His crit damage got removed altogether. Wow, they really hit some of his thingies. This change is really nice. This one sucks dick. Because this one got kicked down there. And they added an extra heal on top of that. And the move speed was buffed, but I don't know. That's still really unfortunate. Kuka's minimum damage went up by 4, which makes most of his damage higher, obviously, on average. New ability. Admiral's Rum. Taking damage from a hero, building, or Roshan that would reduce Kuka's below 65% health automatically triggers Rum over 10 seconds. Providing movement speed, delaying damage. Delayed damage is dealt evenly over 10 seconds once the buff ends. So like it's like a mini Rum buff. Torrent is a bigger radius by 25. Tidebringer is no longer innate, so it's the same. Cooldown was rescaled though to be better early. No more Torrent Storm. Oh, that's so cool. That's so bad for Kunkka. Let's go. Allied heroes touched by the ghost ship receive a stronger Admiral's Rum. Rum bonus speed 15%, damage delayed 35%, so it's better than his passive. Now upgraded with Ag Scepter. Creates a fleet of 2 ships at the target point on a 2.5 second interval. Each ship also fires 3 waves of 4 cannonballs from the port and starboard side that deal 40% of the ghost ship's damage as they pass through enemies. Each unit can only be hit by 1 cannonball per volley. They have a radius, speed. Okay, so they put Ghost Fleet basically into the ghost ship and added cannonballs, which is really cool. We have to know how it works, though. Let's take a look.
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, honestly, I agree. It was obnoxious. It was obnoxious. I'm so happy.
Admiral Conker here. strength grow. Aye, Scepter.
Let's have a good, clean match today.
Ramming speed.
First blood.
First blood. And here come the sharks. Collision course.
It's invisible for some reason. I mean, that's a lot of damage. That just did 700 damage with nothing else. Level 1 ult. And the damage will increase.
As you wish. Yo-ho-ho!
Why are they suddenly invisible?
Bearings.
So you say. Yo-ho-ho!
I mean, these cannonballs hurt, though.
Hey, now that
But at least they don't stun you. That's the big difference. I don't know why it stopped existing, but whatever. Cool. Overall, Kunkka's Admiral's Rum is cool just for, like, lane Kunkka. Whatever lane you are in. But the nerf to Torrent Storm, big nerf. Legion. New innate, which isn't moment. Attacking enemy hero that has a higher level than Legion increases her HP regen, lifesteal, and incoming heal by 50% for 4 seconds. Always applies when attacking a hero that is at max level, meaning she gets this when everybody's at 30. Basically, that means that she's going to get 50% lifesteal just by attacking you if you're a higher level. So if she's low level, she can catch up. They also nerfed the lifesteal by 5% at all levels, because I'm taking off the first 40, obviously 60 to that. So 5% lifesteal, moment of courage went down. The cooldown was rescaled the same. I would say this 5% doesn't matter, since she's often going to get this. That's really big. I think this is a really big buff for Legion. It's going to very much help when she's behind. What I do wonder, though, I have to know again. I hate doing this over and over again, but there's some things I just have to test. What happens...
Whatever they brought, it won't.
What happens when she just hits a hero with no items, right? Level 1 versus level 1. She got a passive, right?
This land will burn.
She won't get it unless they're 1 level up, so I'm going to level them to 2. Just 2.
Engage.
Prepare yourselves. We're nearly ready.
I'm under attack. Smart move. My bearings. I have you now.
I can see the buff. So, okay. More accurately, increase your HP regen, and I think it amplifies lifesteal, because it's not giving me lifesteal, okay? I'm not getting lifesteal. I'm getting HP regen.
Yes.
So I want to be clear about that. However, I forgot to do a reset. If I have Moment of Courage, and we do this again, I think a single Moment of Courage is going to heal me pretty big. I think Legion's unkillable in this context with no items or no abilities, right? Just having 1 level of Moment.
Killing begins.
So, Legion being a lower level, and obviously having abilities that, you know, counter, they go together, you know, having more moments or whatever, that's really scary. That means Legion versus a carry who's ahead of her if she duels, that's rough. Leshrac. Diabolic Edict, this is the one that I believe... The no damaging buildings.
My nature are in
The duration decreased from 7 to 6, but total damage is unchanged, meaning it happens faster. That's a buff. Damage on Split Earth was decreased by 5, 10, 15, 20. That's a big nerf. So a buff to a talent, a facet that I think nobody takes, and then a nerf to Split Earth. Alright. Instead of Corpse Eater, it's now Rage. Instead of getting permanent HP from killing a creep, it was moved to the Feast innate ability. Lifesteal against permanent max HP whenever he kills a creep or hero. Every creep is 1, heroes are 15. I think it's fair because now his facet doesn't have to be solely about him scaling. I think that's really cool. Lena, a new innate ability instead of Fiery Soul. It scales with Laguna Blade. Every 150 damage Lena does to an enemy hero causes them to overheat, dealing an extra damage to their allies in a radius. Deals 10 damage to the target's an illusion. Dealing over 150 damage can cause this effect to trigger multiple times. It just says allies, not the person. But if you start hitting one person with spells, it'll start hitting everybody with a small amount of AoE. Just to be clear, if Lena does a stun Q combo, they'll all get enough damage to all overheat. All of them will deal damage to each other, which I wonder if it could trigger overheat again. Technically speaking, right? Again, I gotta test it.
I come to tip the balance.
Wanna play with fire?
Oops. That's not what I meant to do. Gotta know, right? What happens if I have a bunch of enemies and I have my
Fire in my eyes.
passive, right? Combustion.
I'm
And I get a
going.
bunch of enemies in one place.
Okay, time for me to learn the rules of DotA. I'll just be skimming this as you.
So first, let's just do it to one of them. Did very little. Right? 51. Yeah, that's fine.
Time to hot foot it. Temperature rising.
How much damage do I have to do? 150?
battle.
I won't do enough until I get that. Okay.
Yes.
There it was. I see it.
Affirmative.
Heat wave.
What's that?
It doesn't look like it combos together. Once you already have the debuff, you can't re-get the debuff.
Burn a path.
So nobody could get like a refreshed...
First blood.
Actually, they did have 2 debuffs on them.
What?
Five innocents driven mercilessly.
You can, in fact, get multiple debuffs.
Death to them all.
Okay, it does.
Rampage.
So if Lena did enough damage in an AoE,
Fire.
even if we level up some of these to max, the damage is going to be a lot. They'll live because they're 30, obviously. That's, you know, a different story. But in general,
Affirmative.
Oh yeah.
that's a crazy amount of damage to... Okay, for 2 Laguna Dragon Slaves and a Light Strike Array, that did 800 damage. And are you seeing this shit?
On it.
I didn't even do an ult, which obviously would do more. Like, that's crazy. What's the cooldown on these? Alright, so...
Open fire.
It does not say spell damage either, by the way. Is there a cooldown? What if I get a data list?
Like a wildfire.
Hey, Cave. I'm from U.S., Rhode Island specifically, and not as much as I would like. Definitely not from this. I don't make a living doing this. Why? I'm not going to tell you my income. I own a home. Well, I mean, I own a home because I have a significant other. I make enough that combined with somebody else who makes similar amount, I can own a home. I mean, I make more than that, but why? Why are you so curious? You know what's funny, Cave? I know you're not a new viewer either. You've been here before. Like, you've been here for a couple years now. I'm just curious why you're so worried about it. If you give me a good reason, I'll tell you. Is it because you're worried about how much you make? Now line when an enemy has no mana remaining, the slow is increased 15%. This makes this slow tremendous. The movement slow is already 30%, right? So now it's going to be 45% slow To motivate you to do what? Like meaning motivate to not make 20K? I don't even know where you live. Like, do you live in the US or do you live outside the US? Because if you live outside the US, the money is not going to compare, let me tell you. Okay. I make like twice what you make. And let's be clear, I can't afford a house by myself. This would not exist if I made just me. Absolutely not even close. A house in the US compared to there, I'm just going to estimate. A house in the US now is increased. The average home is right around $400,000. Not down, but like that's how much the house costs. So then you have to go through all the work about like what's the mortgage, how much do you put down, all this other stuff. But like, you know, the average home in the US costs like somewhere around $400,000. Yes. That's why it's not very comparable, because it's like, you know, I buy groceries and I buy groceries for 2 weeks and I get like, you know, it costs like $150 to get, not even, it costs like 200, I think. $200 to get groceries for 2 weeks, and we don't buy a lot. Like, I eat out sometimes too, which costs more. But I mean, just like the groceries to like supplement, stuff's wicked expensive in the US. It's crazy. All right, Lone Druid. I really am running low on time here. Not that anybody's answered in furry, not that I don't believe. So it doesn't like, not like it matters crazy, but you know. So, Spirit Bearer now also increases the attack distance threshold between Lone Druid and the Spirit Bearer. That just means where he's going to get, like how far away he can be with Bear still attacking, which is fine. That doesn't matter terribly. New facet, Bear Necessities. Lone Druid can only use 3 slots of his inventory, but he gets bonus passive stats from them. Scales with True Form. Yeah. The average in the US, I believe... Well, the average is really tipped because of rich people. But, like, you know what? Yeah, I can just let that set up. The median annual salary, which affects... is less affected by outliers, such as really rich people, is about 60K. However, it depends what state you live in, because some of the people who make that amount have actually more expensive things. The reason I say that is because, like, okay, you look at like I'm gonna diss a whole state right here, so get ready for it. Right now, the economy in California is really not good. I'm not in California, but the economy in California is not as great as it could be. I'm not gonna claim to why, and I'm not gonna comment on it. But because of that, sometimes it can actually increase your wage, so it looks like you're making a lot of money, but the cost to live there is absolutely insane. So I actually make more money comparative to what I need here than people who make 60K in California. Because, like, to get an apartment in, like, California or something might be, you know, twice what my mortgage is. So it's so misleading because it's so, you have to look at, like, how much is housing. I could look at, like, how much people make in my state. I don't know if they have that stat, though. So not related to DotA, but so I don't hide anything. It looks like a little bit more than me. Somewhere around 50. So much closer to what I make. You do business, meaning you have your own business? Like, what do you do exactly? I'm going to keep talking as you answer. Bonuses apply to the following stats: strength, agility, intelligence, health, mana, evasion, attack speed, bonus damage, health, and mana regen. Okay. What kind of business? It matters, right? So the big thing with this is it looks like a good facet where Lone Druid basically gets to build on himself, only buy a couple items, and then get huge bonuses. Okay, that's funny. So I'm not sure how this works. We'd have to see it in play. New innate ability. Lone Druid can reroll his neutral token once per tier. Oh, that's gross. Spirit Bearer can no longer equip his own neutral items. Now copies and shares a cooldown with Lone Druid's currently equipped neutral item. Ooh, that's a big nerf. Big nerf. They removed Salamene's favor. The Facet Moon Shield was renamed. Who cares? Lunar Blessing. Move to innate ability. Can no longer be leveled. Grants 1 attack damage per level to Luna and allied heroes, and 400 bonus night vision, plus 20 per level to Luna. Luna receives double the attack damage bonus at night. Lunar Blessing is global. Okay. That's gross. So she's going to have more damage overall, just so we're clear. Lunar Orbit. New basic ability. Creates 4 glaives that rotate in a radius around Luna. Any enemy that collides with a glaive takes a percentage of Luna's attack damage. Just smaller percentage. Yeah, I mean, don't we all? I'd love a raise right now. Moon Glaives can no longer be activated. Rotating Glaives move to Lunar Orbit ability. Item Shard upgrade removed. Bounces was increased by 1 at all levels. I'm an ABA therapist, so you're going to have to look it up. It's very complicated to explain what I do. Very complicated. Okay, this is a lot of changes. I think that overall she'll do more damage. Moonglaves is better. I don't know how Lunar Orbit works, but it's probably just better, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really nice. This is going to be really good. Lycan, a new facet. Increase the max level of Summon Wolves by 2, but decreases the max level of How and Feral Impulse by 1. Okay, so he's more about summons. Damage and health scale linearly for their 5th and 6th levels. Starting at level 5, Wolves gain Hamstring, an attack modifier that applies a root. And the next 4 attacks from units under Lycan's control deal an additional 50 physical damage. Starting at level 6, Wolves gain Hit Hightail. When activated, Wolves get a burst of energy, gaining hasted and phased movement, 100% evasion, and 20 attack speed. Wolves summoned with Ag Shard are improved when leveling summon wolves past 4. Yes. So basically, this looks like if you want to go full wolves, you go full wolves. In exchange, they're not as helpful in other contexts, but these wolves look vicious as fuck. I like this. This is interesting. The facet no longer deals additional damage when skewering enemies into trees or cliffs. That was moved to a base ability. Skewer now deals additional damage when skewering enemies into trees or cliffs. They also buffed the damage it does when you hit those things. Psychology, but technically you can have my job without a degree. It's a certificate that you need, which you can get. My job provides you the ability to get it. They help you get it. I do happen to have a bachelor's, but you don't have to. I wouldn't have my particular position at my company if I didn't have a bachelor's, but I could just be a lower position in my company and still work. Bodyguard, health gain from lifesteal now also heals bodyguarded ally. Okay, so if you bodyguard the ally and then you hit somebody and you get health, you heal that ally. Bonus armor was increased by 1 that all 0, 1, 2, 3. That makes bodyguard actually much more tempting. That's much more tempting. Whereas support Marcy might actually be something useful. No, I have a fiance. I couldn't afford this house if I lived alone. Mana Pact was removed. That was the thing that allowed Medusa to get rid of mana in exchange for attack speed. Now, Venomous Volley. Medusa applies a poison to every 5th attack, slowing enemies by 35%. Their attack speed by 80 and cast speed by 50. The poison attacks count as an attack modifier for the purpose of split shot, so they can't hit everybody. She works with data, basically. It's complicated to explain what she does too, but just she works with dealing with data and spreadsheets and stuff like Excel. She does a lot of stuff for her company, basically. Mana Shield's no longer levelable. Now it just has a 2.4 damage per mana and then gains 0.1 damage per mana as it levels. No problem. Don't be afraid to tip or subscribe. So I think that this mana, I read this before because I care about Medusa a lot. I think overall her damage per mana is actually worse than it would be otherwise, depending on what level she's at. And I think that's fine. I think that's needed. She needed to be knocked down a peg. So that's okay. Mystic Stake doesn't slow movement speed or turn rate, and the cooldown was increased to make it worse at all levels. It can be very hard to get a job in general. Because nowadays, if you have a college degree, it doesn't make you more marketable for most jobs. And if you don't have a college degree, you might be marketable, but some jobs won't hire you altogether. So it's like it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, oh, I can't get this job if I don't have a college degree. But some jobs, if you get a college degree, I won't get paid enough to make my college degree worth it. I'll take a loss. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? Gorgon's Grasp. Medusa fires a volley of arrows into the sky that land in 3 groups in a line, with each grouping larger than the previous. If you're struck with a grouping of arrows, they take physical damage and are rooted. Can't turn and take extra physical damage per second. Yeah, it's just a nice little ability for her to fire things at you to deal more damage, basically. That might counterbalance some of the nerfs. Stone Gaze costs more. Needed. Yeah, exactly. Marana, base damage increased by 3, base strength decreased by 2, strength gain increased by 2. She'll be squishier early. It'll balance out after 10 levels, in which case she'll be even, and then she'll get tankier from level 10 onwards. And she'll deal more damage, so that's gross. Marana's just stronger then. This talent facet just increases Wukong's command by 3 seconds. That's pretty nice, actually. Yeah, and Furry is my go-to mod. He does most of any mod work on my channel, which is minimal. But if anything happens where I need to ban people, when they come in, they say, hey, want some of my art? Click this link. And I have to ban them. Actually, you ban most of the people I need you to ban in Furry. You're on it. Once in a blue moon, I have to do it. But typically, you do 80% of it. I do the other 20. Which I appreciate, because I don't want to fucking do it. I'm busy. Not really. A little busy. Jump speed was decreased from 800 to 700. That actually really nerfs Tree Dance, by the way. He's much slower. Now goes on cooldown when taking any damage, not only from player-controlled units or Roshan. So if a creep, yes. We used to live near each other, but not anymore. We still play Dungeons and Dragons with each other outside of games. So they also nerfed the early damage of Primal. I don't know if he would say that. We're very close friends. So basically, I'm just thinking. Okay. Big buff on this facet. Cool. Huge nerf to the jump speed. Huge nerf to a creep being able to cancel Tree Dance. That is so bad. This is huge nerfs to Monkey King across the board. I'm almost done. I'm almost on time. 7 minutes. I'm not finished right on time, but I'm close. A friend does a facet. Already existed. It now scales with Pierce the Veil. Now increases Muerta's attack speed when she's within 450 range of her Ofrenda. It's no longer destroyed or goes on additional cooldown when she responds. Okay, big buffs to Ofrenda. That's really nice, actually. Naga. Deluge now also caps enemies' max movement speed to 225, so it's a big slow. Duration decreased, though, so it's not as big of a long as a slow. Status resistance reduction was increased by 15, making it so it does more status resistance nerf. So big buffs here. Big buffs to Deluge, because the duration is less important than, I think, less important than the rest. Nature's Prophet. Here we fucking go again. Ironwood Treant now also increases Treant's vision. Now requires a single target tree to be selected to cast. Treant move speed was increased by 50, making them more annoying. Wrath of Nature now hits all visible targets. You hear this, Infuri? All targets. It does not increase damage past the 16th bounce, which it didn't before. It already hit 16 before. Aghanim Scepter min-max entangle duration was decreased, though, by 0.5 and 0.8. So it can't lock you down as long. Curse the Old Growth now uses the same Treant multiplier as Spirit of the Forest when calculating damage from Treants. So basically, buff to Ironwood and buff to Wrath of Nature. Gross. Nyx, I love some changes here. Mana Burn no longer scales with Vendetta. No longer has a damage threshold. No longer triggers from Nyx's ability damage. Now only triggers from Nyx's ability damage. Percentage of current mana burned rescaled to just always be its minimum. Nyx Sense now also reveals enemies in Fog of War. Radius decreased by 50, though. So he can see other enemies around him, even if they're invis or in Fog of War, but it's a smaller radius. Ag Shard upgrade reworked. Vendetta applies break for 4 seconds, which is nice to have break. They decreased Vendetta damage here, Impale damage here, and Vendetta applies break at 25 was replaced with Agility. So it didn't used to break with Vendetta, which basically allowed him to go faster. I would say overall these are nerfs. Good. Ogre Magi got a nerf on his mana regen per strength. Degen Aura got his radius increased, which is actually a big buff to Omni Knight. Aghanim Shard affects purification now. After a 3-second delay, the target is purified again with 75% effectiveness. So a double heal. That's really nice. Repel now provides 60% magic resistance. So it stops... Okay, they took away Repel's ability to give status magic immunity, basically. Cooldown was increased also. That's by 10 seconds at all level. And it no longer has an Ag Shard. Hammer of Purity has been properly converted to be an attack modifier. So there's no delay now. No longer spell stealable. No longer procs magic stick. Mana cost was decreased. Cooldown decreased a lot. Damage was decreased, though, by 5, 10, 15, 20. Bonus base damage was decreased at later levels by 30. What, 0, 10, 20, 30? Okay. So you can spam Hammer of Purity. It's much easier to do. However, in exchange, it is significantly weaker. Nerf. Guardian Angel, instead of being unit target, it's now a point target. Now applies Guardian Angel to all allied units in a 400 radius. That's really nice. That's way better. No longer has 2 charges. Cast range decreased from 900 to 600. You have to be much closer. Cooldown increased by a lot. 40 at all levels. Aghanim Scepter upgrade reworked now provides a global cast range, increased radius, and allows it to affect buildings. Also amplifies health regeneration and incoming heals by 100%. Okay, so what I'm seeing here... Oh, they also nerfed like all of his talents, it looks like. Yeah, for the most part, yes. They just nerfed his effectiveness. Even though I like Purification, Damage Omni is gone. Support Omni is back. Minor changes, don't care. They nerfed this, buffed that. Rolling Thunder does less damage early, more late. Don't care. Blur now disjoints. It should. Cast time is also less, so it comes out faster. Alright, PL, my love. Bonus illusion, I already know they were nerfs, by the way. Bonus illusion damage on Divergence, which is the one I take. No, I actually don't take Divergence. I'm sorry. No, I do. Divergence is mine. Yeah. Bonus damage, illusion damage was decreased by 2. Needed. New innate ability instead of Phantom Rush. Items that grant bonus damage instead grant base damage for 65% of the original value. That means if you take an item like Divine Rapier or something that does damage, like bonus damage, it will give base damage instead, but at a lesser value. Now, this is bad when you're controlling just PL the hero. This is really good when you're controlling illusions, because they go off of your base damage. So the 2% banish damage nerf doesn't matter as much as your illusions having this amount of damage that you would get added back. Illusion damage on Spirit Lands got nerfed by 5. Aghanim Scepter bonus illusion damage was also nerfed by 10. These were needed, I think. Too strong. Phantom Rush, this cooldown went back to normal. Rush duration went back to normal. This went back to normal. Juxtapose illusions got nerfed dramatically. 5, 5, and 5, so 5%. They also nerfed the talent that increased the damage by 4. And they took away his critical strike and increased the passive. I actually think that's better, by the way. I would rather not crit. I would rather the passive actually matter. So here's how it plays out. I'm going to lose 2, 5, which is 7, and another 4. So I'm going to lose 11% damage on illusions. That is a big deal. But in exchange, any damage I get that's bonus damage, any damage, now affects my illusions for 65, and when I hit 25, it does it for 80%, which allows my illusions to then do all that damage. So now anything that applies bonus damage will affect them. I think overall it's still a nerf, but it's an interesting change. Dying Light, the radius was decreased, a nerf. Move slow decreased at early levels. Self bonus move speed increased by 1. Active added bonus movement speed decreased by 1, though. It's always 5. for both. The other facet reworked. Pulverize now provides 20% AoE increase for all items and abilities per hit. Interesting. Uproar, slow per stack was decreased to have to scale up. Cool. UI help, you can now see how Curveball is supposed to go. Whatever. Pugna. I'm going to start inviting people just to get them in. Because I'm going to be finishing very soon. Okay. Pugna. Now also gains spell amplification per destroyed allied towers, but the spell amp went down by 0.25%. That's still a buff though. It's more. My YouTube videos or YouTube videos in general? Oh yeah, I have no debt other than the fact that I own my house, of course, a mortgage. Other than that, I have 0 debt. It's nice. Damage to mana and health increased by 5%. Cool. Oh, the country. Oh, yeah, that too. All these talents changed. I'm just trying to, like, feel it out. Who cares? That's actually better. That's a better 10 talent to Nether Blast more often. They moved that up, obviously. Yeah. I like this talent, too, being buffed. Looks like Pugna nerfs, buffs up across the board. Probably needed. Queen of Pain got 2 strength increase. Whatever. Bondage. When someone hits her, 5% extra damage goes back to her. Oh, I don't really care. It doesn't affect me personally. I mean, does it affect the economy, which affects how much things cost? I mean, yes. I think spending is crazy. But unfortunately, there's not a single thing I can do about it, so you just you learn to deal with it. It's like people who are in like countries that are at war or something. Like, I'm sure people aren't happy. How do you feel about the fact that you're at war, people in Russia? I'm sure they'll be like, oh, we don't like it. Well, what are you going to do about it? Well, nothing. It's life. Nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? Obviously, people in Ukraine would be even more upset, but they're kind of forced into a situation more directly, so it's different. But, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing you can do about it. 20 damage replaced with attack speed against Shadow Strike units. That's interesting. That's better. And they just traded them. They traded their levels. And they buffed one and nerfed the other. Interesting. I like this a lot. Good buffs. Thunderhead now has Storm Surge. Lower strike cooldown by 2.5 seconds during Eye of the Storm. Interesting. Okay, just more lightning. What would you expect? Ricky. Tricks of the Exterminator, which is the one I take. Agility bonus when attacking. Non-hero units increase from 4 times to 4.5 times. So basically, the agility damage on Tricks of the Trade base is 40, 60, 80, 100. But when you take this, it multiplies that number if you're hitting creeps. So before, that would mean I was doing at level 7, 400 damage to a creep, right? 400 agility was the base amount. And then based on the level of ult I have, that would be the agility damage I'm doing. Which might not be up to 1, right? But like something around there. I would still do the damage, meaning 400 would be agility, i.e. it's an attack, and that would happen. But I might get bonus because it's backstab if I'm hitting from behind. Which you always do during tricks. So increasing the multiplicative effect just means more damage to creeps. They'll die faster. Cooldown buff early on smoke. Rubik. Bonus attack damage per spell amp was decreased by 0.25. So I guess he was just getting right clicks and now they're worse. Spell amp on Arcane Supremacy was nerfed early. That's the same late. Still, I'll take early nerfs. Dust Devil. Area of effect of Sandstorm was increased at all levels by 150. That's really nice, actually. That makes Dust Devil much better. Max health damage was rescaled to be worse early, better late for Caustic. And the duration was rescaled to be worse early, the same late. Aghanim Scepter was removed from Stams. Aghanim Scepter was removed from Sandstorm? Fucking let's go. Stinger now procs Magic Stick. Mana cost was increased. Cooldown increased a little bit. Bonus damage is now extra physical damage instead of bonus attack damage. Bonus attack damage was decreased. That's huge nerfs, by the way. That's nerfs across the board for Stinger. Epicenter is now upgraded with Ags. Every 0.5 seconds, 3 Stinger attack areas are created at random locations, each measuring 15% of Epicenter's current radius. That apply 50% of sticker damage to enemy units. One enemy can only be hit by 1 Stinger per pulse. While having both items, Aghanim's Shard pulses apply 1 Stinger attack from Ag Scepter, because Shard's the same as it used to be. So basically now, a right-click Sand King is actually more viable. They did nerf the way that it works here, but now that it happens during Epicenter, even if they are weaker hits, they're like partial hit Stingers, they're going to hit a bunch of people. So now I can see Sand King actually doing something.
I am Sand King.
So I'm going to try this real quick because I'm really curious. I'm going to Shards, Ags, level 1 ults.
Some call me Crixalis.
What do you think will happen this time? Murdering one another, probably, yes? Unless, yeah. No, I'm going to go with constant murder.
Right. Yes, indeed.
Oops. Did not mean to do that, but okay.
I shift like the
Okay.
sands.
Interesting. I'm going to give him a heart.
As I thought.
I'll give him 2 hearts. Alright, I want a Daedalus to see if it can crit. I assume it can.
Cometh.
Alright, now I'm going to try Epicenter. Alright, just so we're clear, that did about 3,500 damage. Did you see that in Furry? $3,500 damage is what that did. Thank you for saying so. So, I'm assuming if you had more damage from other items too, just that give raw damage, you know what I mean?
So you
It's gonna be worse. $1,200. So he took $3,000. It's obviously gonna depend on what's hitting him, but like now that the shard can actually just hit, just being near somebody has a chance to do one of those hits.
right.
I think it chooses a random place for it to happen, so it's just not hitting him right now, but it can. Yeah, there it is.
I am ready.
Which DPS one? Oh, Witchblade? I'm sure it would. I mean, granted, if I hit him with Stinger, he gets Scotty debuff. So, like, anything that does any damage is gonna affect the same way. Yeah. Odessa would work too, actually.
And the blood spills.
In theory.
Sand strikes the perfect note.
I'm guessing that would probably make him die really fast. Yeah, he has Odessa debuff on him. He's actually getting lucky and he's not getting that many sharp things on him since it's random. That's the problem. It's not reliable damage, so anything could work, but how many hits he gets is going to be up to chance, right? Very interesting changes. I like them a lot. Shadow Demon. Promulgate. Current health loss increased from 15 to 20. That's cool. It's a buff. A cooldown buff too. Alright, Necromastery. Lasting Presence increases Necromastery. Every hero kill increases max souls by 1 until Shadow Fiend dies. So they moved this base Necromastery ability, this one, and they moved it into Lasting Presence, so you actually choose to take it. That's a nerf. Shadow Rays. Stack duration was decreased by 1, so it's harder to change the Shadow Raises. More mana. Max line width was decreased by 50, making it harder to hit multiple lines on a person. Fear duration per soul hit decreased from 0.7 to 0.6, so you're not feared as long either. And they nerf the talent the same way. Huge nerf to Shadow Fiend. Massive Serpent Ward, which is the huge one. The health was increased from 7.5 times to 10 times, making it a huge, very scary ward. Aghanim's Shard Scepter Ward linger duration was increased by 1 whole second. That's nice. Hex never breaks now, but instead you can have extra shackle duration. It kicked down this way. Oh, they just switched them. They switched. Hex can now break much earlier, but this is obviously, you know, it's better when it gets there. All right, huge nerf. I love this. Brain Drain. Permanent int steal decreased from 2 to 1. Aghanim's Shard int was decreased from 4 to 3. But it does still into the dying unit was debuffed by Silencer, even if they're out of range. So if the Curse of the Silent is on them and they run, and Sven hits them with a crit and he dies, I will still steal the int. Mana cost buff to Glaives. Damage per silence was increased by 10 at all levels for Last Word, which is just the passive. I don't remember what it is anymore. What is it? What's the spell? Arcane Curse. Sorry. So, big takeaway here. Silencer steals less in. Love that. Skywrath. The barrier duration from Shield of Scion. That's the one that gives you... yeah, it's the magic damage barrier equal 10 plus hero level. It lasts 3 seconds less. Good. Almost done. Slardar. Aghanim Scepter puddle duration was decreased by 3. Radius decreased by 50. Talent nerf. Slark's base damage went up by 3. Nice. Good on Slark. And they buffed 2 of his talents around Shadow Dance. Alright, Snapfire Cookie. Impact damage was increased at later levels by 0, 5, 10, 15. The attack count duration of Little Shredder went down by 1. Yes. And the talent that does Little Shredder attacks was nerfed by 1 as well. And the attack damage talent was decreased by 10 as well. Good. Less right-click snaps. Thank you. Sniper got a buff to late-game keen scope. However, it's a nerf overall. It went up by 0, 20, 40, 60. That looks so good. 60 attack range. Let's go. And a slight shrapnel buff. But then look at this. We took away the 100 attack range and we replaced it with shrapnel damage. So, wah, wah, wah. He's better right up until he hits 20, and then he will be worse for the rest of the game. Sad. Don't care. Alright, damage reflected on Spectre. Early game is better. Cool. Bull Rush, the lingering bonus movement speed is now determined by Spirit Breaker's current bonus movement speed instead of always the max. I guess there was a bug. Charge of Darkness now gradually ramps up to max movement speed, starting at 25% of the bonus speed. That's a huge nerf. It takes much longer for Spirit Breaker to get there now. However, 25% of the bonus speed is how much the bonus is, which means higher levels, that's still high, you know what I mean? I'm glad, though. Good nerf, even though I love the hero. Shock Collar. Debuff now grants that the next attack of the enemy is redirected onto themselves and triggers the overload charge. Okay. So Shock Collar just makes them hit themselves and then overload themselves. Weird. Bonus armor was decreased on Sven's Warcry, 0, 1, 2, 3. Aghanim Shard no longer passively grants allies movement speed. Now increases active movement speed by 3. More. Nerf overall, though. Techies. Each point of attack speed now also grants attacks projectile speed, so he's going to fire like Sniper quick. Annoying, but whatever. Never a problem. I'm never worried about a right-click techies. Facet we reworked on Void Blades. Meld. Attacking a target with Meld also applies the bonus damage and debuff to enemies hit by the side blade spill. Okay, so if you take Void Blades, it can actually have Meld spill over and kill people. Cool. New innate ability instead of Side Blades. Third Eye. Templar Assassin or teammates can see Rashawn's respawn timer. Weird, but nice. Meld. Armor reduction duration was decreased by 6, which is a really bad thing. Bonus damage and reductions are now applied when denying allies or traps. Side Blades. I assume it's the same at all levels. Yep. 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 Traps no longer provide vision inside the Rashawn pit. Traps now always take 2 hits to kill by ranged attacks, 1 by melees, and 4 by creeps. So, nerf to traps. Nerf to melds. Cool new passive. I like that. It's looks like nerfs overall. Metamorphosis attack range went up, just what I wanted, by 0, 10, 20, 30. So just what we needed was a longer attacking Terrorblade with no nerfs. Base int on Tidehunter went up by 2, making spellcasting easier. Cooldown decreased on Ravage to scale down. That's nice. The Shredder facet, which does when it hits a tree with Timber Chain, it shatters, sending splinters that do damage. They're slowed. The slow duration was increased from 0.275 to 1, so it's a larger slow. His passive, mana per tree destroyed, was increased by 1 at all levels, so more mana back. That's nice. Maybe I'll make him playable. I don't know. Repair bots. The heal per second was increased by 0, 5... No, just 0, 5, 10, 15. Yeah. Defense matrix. The damage barrier was decreased, though, by 20... Is it 20, 20, 0, 0. So early. Warp Flare now always teleports a target enemy to the ability's current cast range of plus 100 from Tigger's position when he threw the flare. Will not teleport units that are over 2,000 range from the desired position. Weird. Tiny. Facet for Crash Landing, which is toss units slow and deal bonus damage to other targets at the toss destination. Radius was decreased, so it's not as likely to kill everybody, and the bonus landing damage was decreased by 5 at all levels. So slightly less toss damage. Damage no longer pierces magic resistance granted by debuff immunity of toss. Toss bonus damage of grow was reduced by 50, 75, 100. Okay, this is what we needed in Furry. It lost AoE 5% for the facet and a whole 100 at max level. That's what was needed. Huge nerf. Thank you. Treant. Aghanim Shard total damage changed from 200 to 100 plus some attack rate. What does this even do? Doesn't look like it does damage. Provides Treant with tree walking. While nearby trees are affected by nature's grasp, tree gains bonus movement speed. What's the shard do? I don't remember. It doesn't say in the thingy, even though it's supposed to. Invisible upon his guide and roots enemies. Deals damage over time. Okay. Instead of being 200, it's 100 plus 75% of his base attack damage, which will be more since he does like 100 at start of game. So at like level 1, it's worth. Oh, he will never have a shard. So when he buys a shard, he'll do more damage. That's really what it is. Now Battle Stance is a new innate ability, and Berserker's Rage is its own thing. He can toggle between ranged and melee. Berserker's Rage gains movement speed, armor, and a chance to ensnare when in melee, like he usually was. In ranged, he has a chance to maim, which slows enemies, and attack speed is increased. No, slows their movement speed and attack speed. And deals bonus damage. So he actually does more damage in range now. Very interesting, because it didn't used to do that. They did nerf the axe damage by 20 at all levels. That does not matter on Whirling Axes. They increased the chance for Aghanim Shard. Sorry, they decreased the chance for Aghanim Shard to throw extra attacks out. In general. But I think this is a buff overall. It's really nice. They just made a nice little change for Tusk so he can change how he uses drinking buddies. We're almost done. Where are you? Nobody else. Oh, Sonic showed up. Hi, Sonic.
Yeah.
I'm about to be done.
I'm just doing some laundry while you're doing this.
Okay, good. I'm at you anyway. New innate ability. I didn't read this one. Scales with Fiend's Gate. After an allied hero teleports, they temporarily gain damage reduction and movement speed. Bonuses are doubled when teleporting via Fiend's Gate. 4, 6, 8, 10. Bonus movement speed. 5 to 20. That's a lot, actually. So people come through Fiend's Gate, you can actually really win a fight off of damage reduction and movement speed. That's huge. Atrophy Aura is now its own ability again. Same. Different. They nerfed bonus damage per creep. Same per hero. Same. So basically, they snuck in a nerf on the damage per hero. So damage per creep, I mean. I gave him a really sick passive. And yeah, Fiend's Gate no longer gives a buff by itself. It's moved to the passive. Which doesn't matter, because it's better that way. Nerf to talent. They move this over to affect those. Nerf, nerf. Okay. Ceaseless Dirge, which is when he dies and instantly respawns in the fountain. Having no cooldown on a really long cooldown. Having no death time on a really long cooldown. It can no longer be refreshed. Good. Cooldown on Tombstone is now always its 3rd level, so it can never get better than that. Flesh Golem slow went down, so it doesn't slow as much either. Nerfs to Undying. Ursa. Bear down. Bonus duration decreased from 20% down to scale up. Now scales within range. I don't even know what that is. Debuffs inflicted by Ursa last longer. So they don't last quite as long now. Okay. Venomancer base damage decreased by 2. Fuck you, Venomancer. When you have Plague Carrier and you attach a Plague ward to a person, the health is now also increased by a percentage of the carrier's max health. So if you put it on a tank, it'll last a long time. New innate ability instead of poison. Venomancer's attacks deal extra magical damage based on how many debuffs the target has. Only counts debuffs from Venomancer and his Plague Wards. Base damage per debuff, 10%. Can be upgraded with Aghanim Scepter, increases Septic Shock base damage per debuff from 10 to 20. Plague Wards also deal Septic Shock damage based on their attack damage. Same. They snuck in a buff to damage per second of Poison Sting. Big buff, by the way, early game. And they stuck in a nerf to the slow, though. Well, buff to early slow, nerf to late. Okay, huge buffs to Veno. Even though we lost base damage, this new Septic Shock means right-click Veno is coming to a game near you. It looks like you could get a bunch of debuffs and just start right-clicking people for a ton of damage. Viper, new innate. Viper's attacks deal additional instance of physical damage per missing health percentage of his target. That used to be how Nether Toxin worked, by the way. He did damage based on missing health. Only works on heroes, though. That's really good. Corrosive Skin's no longer that, and now they buffed it. The attack slow is more. Magic resistance is the same. And they secretly buffed the early game of the damage per second on Corrosive and the late game. So, Viper buffs. He's coming to a game near you, too. Visage. Soul Assumption. It's a new facet. Soul Assumption kills give 35 gold per soul charge. Up to that much gold. 105 to 210. 15% gold from creeps. Enemy heroes killed within 3 seconds of being affected by Soul Assumption also give gold. So it's like Lion, how it lingers in case they die from something else. Lurker, new innate ability instead of Gravekeepers. Visage's ability cooldown durations are reduced as long as he's not taking damage. Grants a stack every 2 seconds that Visage does not take damage. Each stack grants 2% cooldown speed with a max of 10, which is 20%. Stacks fade after 2 seconds upon taking any damage. Gravekeepers, damage reduction per layer was rescaled to be the same, and slight buff to the layer recovery, nerf to layer recovery time. So instead of 3 seconds to recover, it's 4. That's a nerf. Silent as the Grave, which is his invis, costs more, the duration's 5 less, movement speed's 5 less. So this is a really interesting facet. It looks really good. This passive, the innate, also looks really gross. Void Spirit. They removed symmetry. I don't even know what it did. They buffed Sanctuary. Barrier amount per hero hit was increased by 10 at all levels. And they had a new facet. Call of the Void. Upon exiting to simulate, Aether Remnants are created at the 3 portals furthest from Void Spirit that last 4 seconds. No effect if reassembling from the center portal. Remnants face towards the center portal and have reduced pull duration and damage, 60%. Ada Remnant watch distance endpoint is always fixed, meaning that increased watch distance will spawn the remnants further away from the central portal. Center portal. Resonant Pulse now grants physical damage barrier. Base damage. That must be what Symmetry was. I think. I'm not sure, though. No, I guess this one. Base damage barrier, 25, 50, 75, 100. I don't know how to feel about this at all. Okay, got it. Shadow Word now heals less early, more late. Looks like a buff. Weaver, new innate. Every time Weaver casts an ability, he gains 50 attack range for 7 seconds. Okay, that's gross. Geminate is no longer innate. Was that you, Drevel?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm glad I waited. We're about to be ready. But they did nerf it. So 8.5 is what it was, down to 2.5. Now it's 9 to 3. So the cooldown of Geminate went up by 0.5 seconds at all levels, basically. The attack damage was rescaled to just be the same, though. So it looks like his attack range is really nice, but in exchange they nerfed Geminate. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. It's a change, and it might be a nerf overall, or it might be okay. Focus Fire. In the Focus Fire facet, Wind Run no longer grants additional movement speed to Wind Ranger and nearby allies. And the Whirlwind, the duration was increased by 1, and the AoE of Whirlwind equals Wind Ranger's attack range plus 150. So they're really trying to make these both comparable. They nerfed Focus Fire by giving it a straight nerf to an ability. In exchange, they're trying to buff Whirlwind. I still don't think Whirlwind's correct, though. I think it's always going to be a mistake. I hate to say that, it just is. Yeah, it's just not good. Witch Doctor, the Voodoo Festration, self-heal increased by 0.5. It just scales up to 40 now. Who cares? Base damage of Maledict went up at early levels. Who cares? Wraith King lifesteals more early. That's fine. That's good, actually. Now it decreases respawn timer by Wraith duration. So, his Wraith duration, for example, ends up being 3.5 all the way up to 5. If you die, it kind of sucked because you're delaying your death and then having to spawn that amount of time later. Now you don't. So now, as soon as, you actually die, your respawn cooldown is going to be shorter by 3.5 to 5 seconds, and that's so good because that means that you don't get punished for it, ever. Aghanim Scepter no longer reduces respawn time. I don't remember how much it reduced, but okay. It probably is still a nerf, I think. But buffs overall. Alright, I'm not going to go over what was buffs and what was nerfs. There was a lot of changes here. I will just say really quickly, I think teleport changes and breakability stuff is just, really nice, just fixing things. Item-wise, I'll just really, really briefly say this. All aura items are worse. Actually, most items are just worse. Anything that was changed is worse. Other than Shadow... well, it's not even Shadow Blade, it's just the building piece. Solar Crest and Spirit Vessel are now better. I like that a lot. Those are the winners here. Neutral-wise, I don't know how that's going to play out. Every other hero we're going to have to see. The changes are just too much. I'm going to end this particular broadcast and just start right up with DotA right after. Sonic's invited, so as soon as he gets in here, when he's done with his laundry, we'll be good to go. So for those of you on YouTube, I appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you all next time. For those of you on Twitch, I'll be back in 5 minutes.